Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're going to be reviewing Transformers Galactic Trials on the Nintendo Switch. Now this is a Transformers-based racing game that is brought to us by Outright Games, who was most recently infamous for the release of the Patrick Star game on the Nintendo Switch that had a lot of performance issues. So the question here is this another lackluster IP cash-in, or did they actually deliver a pretty decent game this time? Well, that's what we're going to figure out. And just before we jump in, don't forget to help support the channel, hit that like button. As I mentioned earlier, this is primarily a racing game. However, to make it fit with the Transformers IP, it's been hashed together with some bot combat sections. Now we'll be talking about those bot sections a little bit later in the video, but the ultimate goal here is to finish the race in first position. Now the basic setup to the story here is that evil Nemesis Prime has stolen the Prime Relics, which are supposed to bestow incredible powers on whoever possesses them and basically allow them to guide the future of Cybertron. Now just as usual, the Autobots and the Decepticons set off in an explosive race to try to recover the relics first. Now, other than this initial setup, there's very little storyline throughout the whole gameplay. However, one positive thing I can say is that the characters are voice acted. And depending on the interactions that you'll have with other characters during the races, will deliver different voice lines. One issue with this, however, is that some of the characters' voices are really hit or miss. Most specifically for me was Optimus Prime, which was really off-putting. I wasn't expecting Peter Weller here, but I can't believe they didn't find a closer imitation than this voice actor.
My shield is broken, but never my spirit. I must reload.
To be honest, he sounded closer to Megatron than Optimus Prime. But overall, a racing game doesn't necessarily have to deliver an excellent story to be worth your time, so let's dive into the gameplay. So when you start off the game, you'll have access to two main play modes, the Galactic Trials or the Arcade mode. Now the first thing to note is that both these gameplay styles play out in the same fashion. The races themselves are very similar. However, the Galactic Trials are going to be the main focus of your gameplay because this allows you to get the relics you need to unlock the characters in the game. Because from the get-go, you have a choice between 4 different playable characters. However, there are 11 characters in total. The 7 others need to be unlocked. So your initial choices are between, on the Autobot side, Optimus Prime or Bumblebee, and on the Decepticon side, Megatron or Soundwave. And these are not just aesthetic choices, as each character has individual statistics and also needs to be leveled up separately. For example, Optimus Prime will be slower, yet can take more damage during the bot sections. On the racetrack side, there are 10 different courses. However, from the get-go, only a few will be unlocked. The others need to be unlocked by either playing the tracks in Galactic Trials or in Arcade mode. Now to play these tracks, you have to choose between one of 3 difficulty levels: Rookie, Expert, or Prime level. And the 2 later difficulty levels need to be unlocked by completing the earlier one. The number of races in each difficulty level also increases, with 3 in the Rookie level, 5 in Expert, and then 7 in the Prime level. However, which races you actually get will be randomly assigned when you start a new game. And beginning here, we start to see a few cracks in the gameplay mode, because you can play multiple times on some difficulties and never see some of the tracks. And just as in most racing games, knowing the tracks is part of what you need to do to be successful at higher difficulty levels. But that put aside, how is the actual gameplay? Well, the racing sections of the game are actually not too bad, with the main objective of making your way around the track as quick as possible while drifting around corners to accumulate some boost power, all the while avoiding obstacles and hitting boost pads on the course as well. However, the true problem with the gameplay itself are the robot sections of the gameplay. And oddly enough, this being a Transformers game, these should be the best parts of the gameplay. Now these sections, the gameplay is extremely lackluster and extremely unpredictable. First of all, there are some major frame rate issues during the robot sections. There are some frame rate issues during the racing sections, but they pale in comparison to the issues during the robot sections. Not only that, but there's an extreme level of pop-up, and most of the time you can't even tell what's going on. Mix that with gameplay that is extremely lackluster, with you basically just dashing through the sections as quick as possible, hitting the fire button at anything you can actually perceive on the screen with an auto lock-on mechanic. But that isn't even the worst of it, because these sections often will make or break your race, as the game has an incredible level of rubber banding, where no matter how well you're doing in the race, your opponents are always 5 to 10 seconds behind you. And what this often leads to is you getting hammered by your opponents during the bot sections, because since you're the first person to arrive, everyone else ends up shooting at you. So in the end, the only way to actually succeed through these sections is to ignore combat altogether, boosting your way around the level as fast as possible to try to stay as far away from the opponents as possible. But if that wasn't enough, to add insult to injury, the final arrival line of almost each race is directly after a bot section, meaning that if you don't leave that section in first place, you're most likely automatically losing. And that leads to an extreme level of frustration throughout the whole game. In all honesty, this feels like a game that was originally developed to be a sole racing game, then someone last second decided we need a Transformers game and they threw a robot section together. Now perhaps on other consoles than the Nintendo Switch, if the performance is up to par, these sections can be less punishing. I just don't see how they can be any fun. But that's not all here, because the game also leads to an incredible level of grindiness. Because those famous relics that you need to unlock to finish the game temporarily and even unlock the final character, well, guess what? They're randomly assigned loot box format at the end of a successful trial race. So yes, that's right, you can win a game multiple times and never get that relic you need to finish your collection and unlock your final character. And that's not saying that the other characters are easy to unlock. At the end of about 6 hours of gameplay, I had barely 2 of the other 7 optional characters unlocked. And on top of that, to unlock most of the characters in the game, you need to finish the game on the highest difficulty with one specific character. But guess what? Each of these characters have to be leveled up individually, and it's almost impossible to finish the game at the hardest difficulty without a fully leveled up character. Especially the slower characters like Megatron and Optimus will not have the speed required to beat the AI in the higher difficulty modes. What that means is that each individual character requires something like 6 to 7 hours of grinding to be able to unlock the next character. Now, I'm all about adding replay value to a game, but when you only have 10 available courses to play through, trust me, at the end of 6 hours, you're fed up seeing those courses over and over again. Now imagine doing that 11 times over, and you get somewhat of a feeling of what this game is asking you to do to fully unlock its characters. Now at this point, you might think I'm being pretty hard on this game, but don't forget, they're not releasing this as a $20 budget indie game, they're releasing this at $40. And although that's not $60 full pricing, it still is asking quite a bit of money for a game with so many rough edges.
You called?
Now on the visuals and sound side, I've got to say, it's probably this game's strongest feature, because the character designs themselves are well made, their alt modes look good for the most part, and the music that plays during the gameplay actually is pretty decent. So if I've got to give this game props for something, well, the visual designs and sound design are on point. But unfortunately, it's once again let down by terrible in-game performance. And the character designs that actually look really good on the character select screen are very poorly rendered during the actual gameplay sequences. And this leads to very uneven gameplay, where the racing sections actually feel pretty decent, and the robot sections ruin the whole experience.
Full power! There's no strength greater than my desire for conquest!
Now overall, although I was really hoping for a decent Transformers game here, being a huge fan of the franchise, I was once again let down by what feels like a poor attempt to cash in on a popular IP. Now the experience wasn't totally negative because, as I said, the racing sections on their own actually have quite a few redeeming qualities and could be a lot of fun. But when you combine that with the robot sections that make this a Transformers game, but actually make it at the same time feel like a last-minute throw-in that doesn't match up to the quality of the rest of the gameplay, it just makes the whole thing feel very subpar. And that's why I'm going to be giving Transformers Galactic Trials a 4 out of 10, putting it at getting rough. In the end, you would have a way better game without the robot sections, but then it wouldn't really be a Transformers game. So just as usual, let me know what you thought of today's review in the comments down below. On the way out, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you aren't already, and click on that notification bell so you know when all my future content comes out. And as usual, I'll see you in my next video.